Hi, this is Sarit Switzer, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast, a podcast devoted to the teachings of Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi as recorded in his most famous work, the Tanya. My hope for this show is to make these teachings accessible and relatable to the average person, regardless of prior Jewish education or affiliation. The episodes follow the prescribed daily study portions and are meant to serve as practical lessons in how to live your life as your true self and develop an authentic and powerful relationship with your Creator. I have personally experienced the effects the study of this work has had on me, and I'm excited to share what I can of this knowledge with you. So please join me on this journey of learning, self-growth, and connection with your source. Hi, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast. This is episode 214 for the 25th of Sivan in a leap year. So has it ever happened to you that it is the middle of the day and you start to feel really irritable? You start to feel really spaced out, kind of inability to focus, antsy, like you're jumping out of your seats, and you think to yourself, why am I feeling this way? And you realize that you haven't eaten, or maybe it's been a really long time since you've eaten that day. So I know that this is definitely something that I could relate to. This has happened to me on several occasions. And sometimes the answer isn't even so much that I haven't eaten. Maybe it is that I've eaten, but I've eaten things that didn't agree with me so well. Maybe I had too much caffeine in the morning. Maybe I had something very sugary the day before, or wine the night before can even affect me in that way. All kinds of different things. I know that I happen to be very sensitive to these kind of things, that like maybe hypersensitive to the effect that food has on my mind and my body. But this is something that really affects everybody to some extent or the other. That what it is that we eat, the food and drink that we ingest really has an effect on our moods. Or in other words, another way to say this is that it has an effect on our spirits or on our souls. And it's not just food that has this effect on us. It's actually a lot of things. The weather outside, for example, the temperature of our bodies, the amount of sleep that we get or don't get, the amount that how intensely we're working, both physically and mentally. All of these things, all of the occurrings and happenings of our body have a direct effect on our souls. So the reason why I'm bringing this up today is actually to understand this in contrast to God. So if you recall several episodes ago, we had a whole episode talking about how it is that God is not, as some might think, the soul of the world, and how thinking of God as being the soul of the world is really a very, very imperfect analogy. Because when we think about the soul and the body, the connection between them is very different in the sense that the soul did not create the body the way that God created the world. Like, they're two separate entities. They're two separate beings. That's the thing that we focused on in the previous episode. And in today's episode, we're going to focus on another aspect as to why thinking about God as being the soul of the world is really incorrect, in the sense that when we look at the soul in the body, as I explained before with the food and the temperature and all of that, we see that the soul is very much affected by the happenings of the body. Whereas when it comes to God, and this is what we'll focus on in today's episode, this is not the case. Where while it is true, as we've learned, that God is very much aware and intimately knows all of the happenings of the world and is very much involved in that sense here in the world. He's not just standing at a distance in this kind of aloof kind of way. On the other hand, he's not actually affected by the happenings of the world the way that the soul is affected by the body. He remains unchanging no matter what happens here in this world. So let's get into the text and see how the Alter Rebbe explains this. And for context, we are still in the middle of chapter 7 of Sha'ar HaYichud. And the Alter Rebbe begins, and he actually brings a citation here now from the Tikkunei Zohar, Tikkun 57, where it says that there is no place devoid of God, not in this world, not in the higher worlds, and not in the lower worlds. And then the Alter Rebbe goes on to cite a section of the Zohar called the Ram Nehemna in Parshas Pinchas, which says, "He grasps all worlds," referring to God, "and none can grasp him. He encompasses all worlds, and no one goes out from his domain. He fills all worlds. He binds and unites a kind to its kind, upper with lower. And there is no closeness in the four elements, except through the Holy One, blessed be he, when he is within them." And this is where the citation from the Ram Nehemna ends. And now the Alter Rebbe is going to focus on this idea, this passage, specifically the section which says none can grasp him. And that, what does this mean? What is meant by this fact that we say that none can grasp him? It means that no being, not even the most highest of highest beings in the higher worlds, can grasp God with their intellect. The true essence and being of God is ungraspable by the intellect of any created being. As is written in the Tikkunim, he is hidden from all the spiritual worlds, which are themselves hidden, and no thought can grasp you at all. So it's like, just a little pause for a moment. It's like when we talk about the spiritual realms, again, this is a mistake people often make, is they equate God with spirituality. But yet the spiritual realms, as lofty and as hidden to us as they are, in relation to God, they are still extremely far, and they still have absolutely no ability to grasp God's essence and being. They're very far from being anywhere near to what we think of as God. And then even here in the lower realms, even though we know that it's true that God fills all the world, so in Hasidic literature, we call this Memale Kol Almin, this is not the same as a soul inside of a body. So this is that analogy of the soul and the body. So when we talk about how the soul fills the body, right? So the soul is grasped within the body to the point that it actually does get affected and is influenced by the changes within the body. So that if the body's in pain, God forbid, or if the body gets hit, or if the body is cold, or if it's warm from fire and things like that, the soul is affected by these things, right? So it's like I talked about in the intro that we get very much affected. Our moods get affected by the happenings in our bodies, what we eat, what we drink, what we feel, the temperature, all that stuff, which is not the case with God, who does not receive any kind of change at all from the changes that happen in the world, whether it's summer, whether it's winter, whether it's night, whether it's day. God is the same God. He doesn't change in any way. He doesn't get affected the way that the soul gets affected by the happenings of the body. And then the Alter Rebbe here brings a citation to support this. This is from Tehillim chapter 139, verse 12, which says, Gam choshech lo yachshich mimeka v'layla kayom ya'ir, which literally means even darkness does not obscure for you, and the night illuminates like the day. Meaning to say, again, that God is the same God, whether it's nighttime, whether it's daytime, same God, no changing at all. And this is because, concludes the Alter Rebbe, that God is not grasped at all within the worlds, even though he fills all of them. So this is the end of this section. And so it ends off with this kind of like paradoxical statement. And the Alter Rebbe is very clear that it's a paradox. He begins this section by telling us this is not something that we can understand. It's not something that's graspable by us, because it's not something we can relate to. Because as far as we're concerned, in our reality, in our lives, we have a soul and we have a body, and there's a connection between the two in the sense that what happens to our body affects our soul. But yet when it comes to God, even though God is very much present here in the world and fills all the worlds and permeates everything, there's nothing in this world that is devoid of God. Nevertheless, God is not affected by the happenings in the body, and God remains totally and utterly unchanged. So that's it for today, and we will continue along these lines tomorrow, and I will speak to you then. Thanks for listening to the It Is Taught podcast, hosted by Sarit Switzer. This podcast is dedicated in loving memory of my maternal grandfather, Avraham Yitzchak ben Binyamin HaKohen of blessed memory. Music by Shoshana. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support the show, please share it with others and subscribe on YouTube, Apple iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And make sure to leave us a 5-star review. To find out more about the It Is Taught project, including more information on my soon-to-be published book, please visit our website, itistaught.com. To catch the latest from me, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Looking forward to speaking with you tomorrow, and until then, have a great day.